I think this is us for this morning, so let's get started. Can I ask our Regional Council Chair, Henry Ormsby, if she would lead us in the karakia, please?
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. Morena tātou. Please join in to our karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hia ki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora.
All right, just a couple of housekeeping matters for those of us that need reminding. The meeting is being live streamed on the Council Facebook page and recorded for viewing at a later date on the YouTube channel. If there's an earthquake, remember to drop, cover and hold, and if the shaking is long or strong, when the shaking subsides, we leave the building through the nearest exit and proceed towards Napier Hill, up the steps towards Cameron Road. If an emergency alarm sounds, we're going to immediately evacuate the building through the nearest exit and proceed to the assembly area on the grass at the corner of Dalton and Vautier Streets, and the emergency exits are clearly signposted and the wharepako are located down the hallway, but I think we should all know that. All right, apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Curtin, who is away on council business today. No one else? No. Any conflicts of interest declarations to be made today? No. All right, moving on to confirmation of the minutes on the 31st of July, our last meeting. Does anyone have any comments? Zan, you were with us at that meeting.
Yeah, Chair, can you just give me a moment?
Sure.
I highlighted some things. No changes, just interesting follow-up questions. Thank you. I'm happy to move.
Sorry?
I'm happy to move.
I'll second because Macintosh was not here, so we will vote amongst ourselves for that. Okay. All right, so that's all the first things done, isn't it, Leanne? Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on to item 4 of the agenda is the risk management update. And Susie, you're going to
I'll open that through you, Chair, thank you. So the paper you have in front of you is quite lengthy, and I acknowledge that, but I just want to outline the reason for that. So if you recall feedback from the last meetings, we've tried to consolidate a number of papers. You'll remember we had a risk management update. We had what was called an audit universe, which was a big A3 paper. We had a number of pages with follow-up issues that were quite old, some closed. So what we've done now is really consolidate that and simplify that into one risk management update. It does make it lengthy, and so potentially today I suggest that potentially we go through the major areas to highlight, and I have got the key SMEs here, David Nolder and Pip O'Connor, my CIO, and I'm just waiting for the health and safety representative to come into the room, so may fly in at any point. But I guess a couple of things from me in here. As I open, it's been an interesting quarter since we last met. I guess from a landscape point of view, things have become a little more settled at HBRC. We've obviously gone through all of the external reviews, and now having, I guess, landed those reviews and have some strong plans in place that are going through various committees, it's allowing us just to settle back and to take stock of where things are at to be able to move on. A couple of things, I guess, let's just go through this potentially. I do have David here. We continue to embed our risk management framework. Unfortunately, again, this quarter we've had quite a low return rate just in terms of our risk management framework sentiment survey, which isn't ideal, but what we have done is obviously still driving and embedding that risk management framework and how we use that going forward. Some of the key activities that we're now working on is actually lifting out key controls from our business. What must go right and what can't go wrong in our business, such that we continue to provide assurance over those matters. So we'll dive into the paper at the moment. We start just in terms of that broader external context. As I've said, we've had a number of those reviews landed. There continues to be a lot of change coming out of central government or proposed change, and a little bit of uncertainty as we navigate through primarily how to address central government, local government reform. Recently, you'll be well aware of all the fast-track initiatives that have come out through local government. A number of them are Hawke's Bay related, and they will be watch points for us. The key thing I do want to highlight from an external point of view is we continue to be challenged in the way that we demonstrate our NIWI deliverables to the Crown, in particular Crown infrastructure partners. You'll see on paragraph 12 there's been a change in the program steering committee for that, such that Graham Mitchell from CIP is now on that steering committee, as is Nick Peat, as well as invitees, which are primarily the chief executives from other councils to that committee. So we continue to be challenged in that space, ensuring our delivery on that program. Did you want me to stop after each? Yeah.
That would be good, thank you. So they can talk.
Can you expand on that a bit, the nature of the challenge? What is that?
Yeah, so do you want to enter into this?
I think as much as anything, it's the pace of delivery versus our ability to. So government clearly want the projects delivered as fast as they possibly can be. So it's pace versus our ability to take those communities with us. And the really crunchy issues are around interest in land. So those will be the most, and I guess to some extent secondary effects, but mostly interest in land are really complex matters to navigate. So we stripped out at the Crown's request all the usual contingencies in terms of timeframes out of those projects, because they want to be able to demonstrate that they can be done as fast as possible. So it leaves us relatively little wiggle room, I guess, in the process. So that's the main challenge, I think.
So is it fair to say a way to overcome that constraint is money, really, especially where land is related? But alongside that, I don't think there's any more money in the pot to assist with that.
No, there are pretty good frameworks for how you, I guess, settle interests in land. The real, but if somebody decides to hold out, you have to go, down a really long process, and use the legislation. Clearly, when we're dealing with whenua Māori, we're not interested in the Public Works Act as a vehicle.
Yep.
What we do have, I guess, for interest in land is a range of options. So everything from easements and leases through to outright purchase.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Susie, for that update. In terms of the program steering committee, did I hear rightly that the district council CEOs are also on that group?
They have, at the request of a number of members, they are invitees to listen to relevant projects within their districts.
And what value may they bring from a district council point of view into our resilience program?
I guess they bring a local perspective from their own territorial authorities. So it was a mechanism for ensuring that they understand what's going on and are up to date, and can observe all the work that we're up to. There are also places where our infrastructure and their infrastructure intersects. So it's really trying to ensure that there are no surprises for anybody along the way.
Thank you.
Councillor Harding, did you have anything on that issue?
Seeing as you ask, thank you, Chair. No, just to observe that, as Nick pointed out, all the fat in terms of time has been stripped out of these processes up front. And I think one of and beyond the obvious challenges around securing interest in land, we also have some situations where we have interested surrounding communities, so that not those directly affected, as in not categorised, but large communities who have a very strong interest and a very, they've also gone through a flood process, they've been flooded, they've been through the same event as we all did. So very highly attuned to risk now and really interested and frankly deserve an understanding about what infrastructure changes may mean for their own situation. So that is a challenge that is cropping up and taking a lot of time as well. I fully expect that it'll be resolved, but it does take a lot of time and resources.
Okay, there being nothing further on those first 2 points, if we move to the internal council operating environment and picking up the risk management and internal controls piece, I think they seem to go hand in hand.
Yeah. So just in terms of our internal control environment, there are obviously a number of things underway I alluded to earlier. We continue to embed our risk management framework, but also take out of those 1 pages that we've done, what are the key controls, what must go right, and put in place some assurance mechanisms, which you will see in due course coming back through this committee as control testing in the next terms. Just in terms of the third-party reviews, that's often a question at this committee, is when will this committee see those reviews? As we discussed at the last forum, certainly the Wairau Flood Review, the Hawke's Bay Independent Flood Review and the CEDAM Review are actually going through other council committees. However, where there are fundamental risk management, operating and design aspects potentially relevant to the whole organisation, they may come back through this committee for awareness. However, there are plans afoot to address those in other committees. The key controls, paragraphs 16 and 17, what we've done here is, given the charter for the Risk and Audit Committee exists and was updated last year, what we're trying to do here in paragraph 17 is outline examples of where critical controls are relevant back to that charter and where you may see going forward how the committee meets that, and actually assurance mechanisms that may come back to you in the future. The other thing I do want to point out is there has been a number of other things on the table, which is paragraph 18 along to 30, which we are looking at our internal controls and how do we know that they are efficient and improving them. In particular, in the last paragraph 21, we've made significant strides in our own business continuity planning. Now, off the back of Cyclone Gabrielle and obviously all the work happening around both design, having enough staffing, etc. We've made big strides in the last 3 months to reconfirm resourcing requirements for both our own entity and or CEDAM. We have updated our business continuity plans, and off the back of the next week's shakeout, we aim to do some enhancing for our staff and drop-in sessions for our own staff to understand how, as an entity, we will respond. Just in terms of the health and safety framework update, that continues on as we alluded to in the last meeting to the councillors. We are moving to a new ISO standard. That doesn't necessarily mean that anything is completely wrong at the moment. We're just moving and enhancing the ISO framework. Before I go into events, I'll just stop there for ask any questions and over to these guys.
I think I'll come to questions in a second. I think the key thing for me is in this risk management section around points 13.2.3 and 4, which is around what contributes to the risk and how it's managed through the control environment and how it's assured. And it's great to see it in this sort of format. I think we're not going to lose the wood for the trees in this sort of environment. Now we're not having the big risk assurance universe document and sort of losing track of things. I think this is really concise and clear about where our attention needs to be directed. And hopefully for the next meeting, we'll start to work through those key assurances. So can I ask my colleagues around the table for queries, comments? Councillor McIntosh.
I just had one, the appointment of the senior solicitor. Do you imagine that's going to be of cost benefit to the council? In other words, we need to get less done by outside parties if we have this person in-house?
Just the appointment of the senior solicitor, if you remember, we previously had a manager of operational risk who departed the organisation 6 months ago. I have rebadged that role as a senior solicitor role. As an organisation, in the next 3 to 4 years, we've got significant legal risks upon us, and I need to increase the resourcing around legal risks and reputation for this organisation. That is why predominantly I've gone for a senior solicitor, and I also need that role to enhance our compliance management, which is alluded to in paragraph 19. So that is the primary aspect where I see that role needing to sit and support the Chief Legal Advisor. But also, yes, Jock, one would hope that there are savings instead of using external lawyers, yes.
I think that manages a key person risk too, having backup for that Chief Legal Advisor role. Anybody else got queries on that aspect?
Sorry, Chair. Thank you. Just a test. Welcome, Pip. Welcome, David. At paragraph 23, we talk about inherent resilience provided by our cloud infrastructure. Having just been reading an article this morning about how much space junk is up there just waiting to implode all our satellites, can you just reassure me that we have backups in the case of we lose our satellite communications, please?
We do have backups in case, in fact, our satellites are generally our third tier backups in terms of what we need for resilience. So, yes, we do.
Lovely, thank you.
Just picking up on the comment around the reviews and the role of this committee, great to see that we are firm on that position, that it doesn't come here in terms of going through the substance of those reviews, it's going through to full council or other subcommittees. It's really not necessarily the key aspects of those reviews in terms of the detail, but where they fit in the risk management framework as a whole. And so when we're looking at issues within the risk management framework and it's going to pick up something that comes out of the reviews, that's where I see that crossover occurring. But it won't be the first time that anybody else around the table has looked at that issue, because you will have already been working through it in the recommendations. But I think there's still some work to do there to see exactly where the risk management framework sits with those review overlays. Okay, so shall we move on to the significant events?
Yeah, so paragraph 32 onwards, what I'm alluding to here is any significant events of interest. Now, if you recall, definitely high risk issues come to this forum, as well as any sort of thematical mediums. What I have highlighted here is a couple of issues that have undertaken. Paragraph 34, you'll all be well aware of what happened at the council meeting on the 28th of August. However, we I want to reassure everyone that subsequent to that event, the work actually that had occurred post that to ensure that that does not happen again. We actually had a meeting a week later with Napier City Council and really successfully engaged the local Maori wardens and Napier City Council Assist team to actually help our staff on that day should anything go wrong. And also we had a number of people around. This chambers actually has maximum capacity for about 85 people. That's actually a lot. And if you recall those meetings and the amount of people, there was not 85, it was actually less than that. So this room actually takes quite a lot of people just in terms of maximum health and safety standards on that capacity. But a bit of a lesson learnt for us on that day, so enhancing that awareness has been really important to us. The other key thing I do want to highlight is just paragraph 37. We had due to human error, and this wasn't picked up on the consultation document. We had a small error on the map that went out on the consultation document versus what was rated for the public transport in some areas, and we've taken proactive measures to remediate that for those impacted ratepayers. The only other thing is I do want to, and I have Nancy here from the Health and Safety team to answer, we continue to see an increase in the health and safety incidents that are logged with us. Now that's amazing, up to about 20 a month now. So previously, if you recall a number of years ago, we probably only had 20 a quarter, if I'm honest. But there's nothing material coming through in those incidents. Predominantly, we are taking a lot of heat, obviously, on the phones and at the front counter and in the field, just around negative public perception. There is quite nasty feedback actually being received around the rates invoices, quite threatening. We take proactive action and engage the police when that happens as all required and take measures to support our staff in those instances. And we do have the normal sort of internal, paper cuts, trips, etc. There are a couple of randoms actually in the last quarter just around towing and a number of instances where we've had towing, and I've used instance about 4 times in the last paragraph, so sorry, but one of interest where we had to log that with WorkSafe was the towing incident that was in Waipawa area that caught on fire. That was put out by local mechanics as they managed to get to the mechanic shop. So that's the only one of interest that I want to call out. Outside of that, happy to take any questions.
Questions on the incidents?
Could you give this, expand a bit on the threatening behaviour or threatening commentary over the phone? What sort of things is that?
Gosh, we have, it can be anything, Jock. That can be, you're the reason, awful. You're the reason why, people kill themselves. You'll be the reason why, it's nasty. And threatening in some instances where they want to come in and, bash us. Lots of stuff around that sort of sentiment, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Susie. Just on the public transport rate, sorry. This was an unaudited 3-year plan, and that's a cost saving and an efficiency. Would an audit have normally picked up that problem with the rolls? Did you expect that or not?
I've never seen an auditor pick up a map such as that and revalidate it. Possibly now something they might look at based on this, but certainly I've never seen an auditor do that to that extent, so no.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a related question. What controls should have picked that up?
So our consultation documents go through internal review through the various parties, relevant parties.
It actually went back to revenue and finance, the revenue and financing policy document before, so the LTP document just copied that over.
Yeah.
So it was actually, the original mistake was in the revenue and financing policy consultation.
Okay.
Chair, I just had a couple more comments I wanted to make on that. The first is just to note the complexity of the rating system and the fantastic work that the rating team have been doing together with councillors and a large part of the organisation over the last 18 months more than that, in fact over the last 2 terms, to simplify that, so that simplification should lead in future to fewer errors. But it is a Herculean task, and so I just want to note my support for the team that do this for us. The other thing was we did, and I think was as discussed with the CE at the time, get a legal check of the, and I think it was only to the extent of the resolutions that were passed, so there wasn't a legal check, but you wouldn't expect that, as with the audit, by the sound of things, to delve into the level of detail that's involved to pick these things up. Thank you.
Chair, just a question around the 28th of August meeting, and just to thank the team for being swift in the actions undertaken straight after. My question is around the posting of photos and whether there are controls or not around, I guess, a political lens applied to quite sensitive items that are put on our Facebook page. So that is the question. Are there controls around that? And if there are, what do they look like?
To the extent that we try to make sure that what we put up is legal, yes, I think it was just a simple mistake of putting that up with a person in the background with some insignia. I think the challenge from that meeting was more that the whole lot of material was put online from people in the room, that videos and so on. So, yep, we will always try to make sure that our posts are legal. I don't think many of us were aware of the particular gang insignia law before that was put up, to be quite honest. I wasn't aware of that piece of legislation.
I think that comes into the broader issue of having a good understanding of what the legal obligations are and needing to have that obligations register in place and updated and used. And that was going to be a follow-up question from me because, you know, we've been talking about it for some time. I know there's been a lot going on and you've only had one lawyer working in the organisation. How is that progressing?
Yeah, so if you go back to paragraph I have noted in 19 and 20, that we have been working with Comply With, and we have a list of obligations for this organisation. And now I want to be really clear though that it's not that we don't know exactly everything. We have thorough health and safety. We've gone through the Privacy Act last year in terms of key controls, so Financial Reporting Act, Corporations Act. So we do have a really good fundamental understanding, Resource Management Act, of what we do. It is these other, those other compliance obligations that we do want to get across, such as where there could be a liability for us in the event of non-compliance. So we do have the list. It's just the resource now to make that happen. It's quite a big piece of work to work with the business or other business units to actually understand what that means. What are the processes? What are the controls? So there is going to be some heavy lifting in there once that seniors list is on. Yeah.
Any other queries?
Yeah, Chair, sorry, Jock, you want to go first?
It's related to the previous one. I think we should just be clear, Chair. I mean, no one was happy with gang insignia in the room at the time. Nobody was. We were caught on the hop. And for me anyway, we didn't do anything because to do something would have created a big issue out of it. Now, and what should have been a celebratory occasion, however, of course it became an issue because it was live streamed and so on. But, you know, we were caught on the hop.
I agree. Thank you, Chair. Look, we have the enterprise risk dashboard that we haven't actually gone through yet, and we've got our acting risk manager here, and it is worthy of spending a little bit of time on, I think. So if we've got nothing else to do with this paper, I would like to make a couple of comments on that and have a chance to discuss.
All right, let me just check that there's nothing else in here that we need to be...
Assurance activities?
Yes, assurance activities.
Can I quickly go through those? Thank you. Sorry, because there is quite a bit happening across the organisation in terms of assurance at the moment. Two audits I will just want to call out. Our data analytics, so this is our material one we rely on every year for fraud and other expenditure controls. That review is out at the moment with the finance team for verification. We've got all the data back now from that. There are usual culprits in there, raising purchase orders, at the time of receiving the invoice. We want to change the behaviours in that. It has identified a number of other inconsistencies, changing bank accounts, multiple vendors. So we'll get to the bottom of those around why, and we'll report back to the next committee. The other thing I do want to allude to is that number 46, quality management system revalidation. We've had the draft report or indications of a draft report yesterday. Pleasingly, no non-conformance. The auditor was really happy with how things have progressed in terms of management in those particular business units. And so that's really pleasing to get a clean sweep through those two reviews. I do just want to pass over in terms of those ICT audits in that IT space. Anything from you, Pip?
Yes, thanks, Susie. Just quickly, I wanted to refer to paragraph 45, the cybersecurity audit. The intention was to conduct that with Ernst & Young this quarter. However, since then, I've had the resignation of my lovely colleague, Rob Simpson, who you'll normally see at this meeting. So what I've decided to do to mitigate the risk of him leaving is to repurpose that funding and actually get a network and security specialist in to the building a couple of days a week, just to mitigate the risk and make sure that we have hands-on tools actually fixing and responding to events as they arise. I'll defer the spend for the audit, but still intend to do that this financial year, most likely March or April, once I've recruited into Rob's role. So just a quick heads up that that's going to be deferred in order to bring in specialist resource to provide cover in the interim.
So in terms of your question for David.
So I'm just going to get the legible version of it up there. So I wanted to, so we're talking about the enterprise risk dashboard, the sort of the one-page high level, what do we think is going on here in the organisation? And firstly, I want to say that it's disappointing. I find it disappointing that only 4 of my colleagues managed to fill in the survey this quarter. Quarter. I have castigated them in the past for previous lackadaisicalness. That's not a word, but it's the best I can come up with at the moment. Look, it's really important, I think, as a group of councillors, we are highly concerned about risk. This is a committee, not of the whole, so not everyone is here. But I know that everyone is very concerned about risk. So why do we not get full participation in this critical tool, which provides us with, at the highest, the helicopter level, at the governance level, a tool to test our concerns around risk and different perceptions of risk, which can help lead towards better risk management. So I really struggle with the dichotomy, that inconsistency between what my colleagues say they care about risk and what they do about risk. So I'm looking for, and I've tried talking to them about it and it doesn't work, so we need to do something differently. So that was my first point, and I'm looking for suggestions. Thank you.
I agree with you, Zan, and I have to say I'm last minute when I've given a second reminder, but I do get one. But I think it's up to us as governors to encourage our fellow councillors also to get it done before the deadline. So yes, very good point and reminder.
I was just, I thought perhaps a sternly worded letter from the chair might help.
I'm happy to oblige.
Hey, look, so
that would be useful.
That was one thing I wanted to get off my chest.
Yeah.
Look,
I think just one on that, I think each, what has there been, 4 or 5 of these done now, maybe?
Yes, I think this will be number 4.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the numbers have decreased each round.
Yes.
And that's troubling.
Correct, yes.
Yes, I was aware of that. Okay, so look, my second point is that, and it's interesting, the commentary that, and this is the standard commentary that comes through, if you like, as the difference in perceptions between management and governance around risk. And if I was to summarise that, it's management are quite consistent and aligned about their perceptions of risk. Governors less so, significantly less so, but so more variability, but probably more concern on average. Now, the interesting thing is, what I take out of this latest dashboard is that of the change, and this is the ELT's perspective, there are 6 changes. 5 of those are deteriorations, and 1 is an improvement, and well done, Susie, to that green light there that your colleagues have given you around effectiveness of funding and financial management. But we have 5 deteriorations, and so one way of looking at that as a councillor is to say, well, the ELT is coming more into alignment with councillors' perception of risk, so I actually kind of welcome that, but more objectively, we've got 5 deteriorations going on here, and that shouldn't go unnoticed and undiscussed. And as a start point, perhaps if we could get comments from our acting risk management on that.
Sure. First thing is, what's reflected in here are perceptions. So it's the collective views. I'm not overly alarmed actually with the fact that there's a deterioration in some of these areas. Broadly speaking, when I look at the trend over the last 3 or 4 months, so the cycle is ELT complete the sentiment survey monthly, which gives a good signal for ELT on areas for them to focus the conversation and what their collective views are. Councillors are asked to complete the survey quarterly. In any one month, it's normal to see some variability, and I do look at see whether there's a general sustained negative trend, which there actually isn't here. So I'm not too alarmed when things move month on month. The fact that there is an increasing level of alignment of view amongst ELT, I see as a good thing, and that is in part based on increased understanding of what is behind each of those areas of uncertainty or risk, and through the related piece of work around identifying critical controls and sources of assurance, confidence that the right safeguards are in place to manage those risks. That's how the activity is looking to come together. You'll see in the dashboard there's actually 2 perspectives here. So the colour of each of the large boxes, the statement, reflects the collective views of ELT, and then you'll see where there's the name of the ELT member that's accountable for that, where there's a colour in that box. So that's really useful to show what the perspective is of the ELT owner and the business lead for that particular area, that is based on the supporting one-page management plan that breaks it into causes and consequences and controls. So that gives the ability to focus the conversation on areas where there is a divergence of view here. So look, broadly speaking, I'm not overly alarmed in the fact that some of these areas have changed, because if you look behind to the overall ratings, they are small movements in each of them that's just tipped it over from, in some cases, yellow to amber or from green to amber. The long-term trend is broadly consistent, but there is variability cycle on cycle.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's really useful. I think what we're seeing from my perspective on this committee, dipping into these issues quarterly, there does seem to be a real improvement in the risk management culture within the organisation. You know, we're seeing it in terms of health and safety issues being recorded and encouraged to be recorded. We're seeing it in the sort of sentiment that Susie touched on around what must be controlled and what can't be left. I think that's a really crucial, I can't remember the exact wording that you used, but really,
can't go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great risk culture to be able to express succinctly. And then these monthly check-ins and an awareness of issues being tracked so carefully and regularly, I think is really encouraging. And we wouldn't want to see this all yellow and green, because it wouldn't reflect what we know is happening on the ground. But I think there's been a huge amount of work that's been done, and there's a great increased awareness of what needs to happen.
And if I could make one final point, in this, there is a danger often of optimism bias, and I think some of this probably reflects that optimism bias is actually reducing here, and there's more of what I consider to be a considered view around risk.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's certainly been my perspective, is explaining the difference between the management and governance on some of these things.
Thank you. All right, so is there anything further there, Susie, that we haven't covered off?
Nothing further to raise.
All right, so for that agenda item, we are reviewing and considering that document. Can I have someone to move that?
Move.
Councillor Harding, second. Councillor McIntosh, all those in favour? Carried. Item number 5 now is the Port and Harbour Marine Safety Code review on page 17 of our pack. Actually, mine says it's page 15, but hopefully everyone can find that. So, Susie, who have we got?
Here we've got Adrian Wright, who's our Harbour Master, and Katrina.
Good morning. I'm going to totally pass over to the Harbour Master, here for moral support.
And you fit your mic.
All right. Welcome, Adrian. Thank you for coming this morning. We've seen the letter and the review and the paper summarising the issues that we need to be aware of. Is there anything in particular you want to draw our attention to before we head around the table to discuss?
I want to draw the attention, all of your attention, to the fact that I think that nationally and in some cases regionally, there is a bit of an underappreciation for maritime safety risks. I don't think it's at the forefront of our minds based on the fact that we haven't had that many incidents here, or we've managed to mitigate or avert a lot of the dangers. But if you look further afield to other regions and look to issues we've had with the Inter-Islander ferries, Blue Bridge ferries, the Manawanui over in Samoa, the Manaho in Westport, Shiling in Wellington, and the list goes on. When a maritime issue happens, we're looking at damages in the hundreds of millions of dollars and environmental impacts that last longer than our lifetimes. And we have to give that the appropriate level of attention to identify, mitigate, and manage those risks. And it really needs to be a focal point. As the saying goes, wise men learn from the mistakes of others. And we need to definitely use that approach in dealing with these risks.
I'll head over to the other side of the table before I make any further comments. So, Councillor.
Thank you, Adrian. I just want to ask about the use of external contractors and how can we work through addressing those weaknesses or needs and keeping in mind, I guess, the financial strain that the organisation is under. So I guess I'm asking for easy win suggestions, even though it's never going to be an easy win, around how we address those weaknesses that have been identified.
Okay, that is probably one of the greatest risks that we have, both in terms of reputation, the liability that's linked to that risk, and the outcomes. Currently, we're in a position where when there is a maritime safety incident that we have a regulatory responsibility to look after, I'm in the position of having to contact external organizations, in some cases, as mentioned in the report, volunteer organizations such as the Coast Guard, which is a position that is untenable. As a council, we shouldn't be doing that. I understand that we have to utilize contractors for certain things, but there are certain core functions and certain things that we definitely shouldn't be utilizing contractors for, especially when it comes to maritime safety, marine pollution, etc. So the when, as you said, is a tricky thing because certain things we shouldn't be doing that we are doing, and certain things that we.
Carry on. I'm just saying, in terms of the answer, all of those are relevant. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah,
I feel quite rude. Sorry. My apologies. We are working on a proposal at the moment to mitigate that. So Adrian, I'm just going to ask you to go to that. We are working with the finance team right this moment on what that would look like if this organisation purchases its own boat, which is what is needed. How do we finance that, and how do we ongo fund that?
Right.
So you can talk to that.
Yes. So after the audit, and even before that, I've been looking at options for what a suitable vessel for our region would look like. Our region is very dynamic and a lot different than other regions. We have rocket launching operations up in Mahia. We have a commercial port, a commercial inner harbor with a fishing fleet, recreational. So we have, it's probably one of the more unique regions. There are not many regions that have rockets going up and down. So we have to have a vessel that is suited for our region's operations. And I'm working on a business case for that. I've met with a couple of stakeholders to discuss what that would look like and try to flesh out some price points and how that can be done in a way that doesn't impact.
Hi there. In this video, I'll show you how to enable the offline feature.
Yeah, what he said. Thanks, Leanne. That was really good.
How we can do that without having an impact on the general rate.
Yeah.
So that it's self-funded.
Thank you. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Good. Would be great to hear any updates on how that goes. At the right
It's a work in progress. It'll come absolutely before the council.
Thank you.
Others?
Actually, just an extension to that. Ideally we arrive at a situation where X is being spent on contractors at the moment. We don't need to spend that, particularly if we get a vessel, and the operational cost of that relative to what we're spending here, hopefully those.
I don't think it's going to quite work out that way. I mean, ultimately the cost of a boat is more than what we're spending on contractors now. You've got the capital outlay first and foremost. There's also activities that we're currently not doing that we should be doing. So it's an and.
Right.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'm just going to the document called Safety Management Systems Review. It's one of the attachments. Look, and the first thing that just caught my eye was panel members Paul Barrett, Maritime New Zealand PHMSC. That's a different Paul Barrett?
That is.
Yeah.
You just need to check that we weren't reviewing ourselves. That was.
I had to make sure as well, because when I got email, I was like, is that you, Paul?
No,
It's a different guy.
a different person.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Look, and there was another thing that popped out for me. Look, in it, on page 5 of that, it talks about the usefulness of developing awareness of code and code signatory obligations amongst the wider council and council laws. Actually, nowhere in the attachments could I actually probably, if I'd done some Googling, could find out what the code is. And I know that we've been essentially audited to the code, but perhaps we should actually, to actually see the code as well. And maybe it's look, and I completely agree. Your opening statement, fantastic. You have stated your case very well, and I think councillors would welcome seeing you more often and understanding more about your role and the risks that you're managing for us. So, yeah, I welcome that. And as part of that, if you want to throw the code at us, please feel free. Thank you.
I understand that you guys have a fair bit of reading and things that you get through, so I didn't want to, chuck too many things on top of that. But I tried to summarize the code in a way that was, easily digestible. It's pretty much a tripartite agreement between us and the national regulators and the port company, where we identify, mitigate, and manage all the maritime safety risks in the region for both commercial and recreational activities. So that's kind of what it's about. I'll definitely attach the code, and thank you for passing that on.
Thank you.
Query that I've got, in terms of the status quo, you've got these arrangements in place with contractors. Is that all documented?
It's a very good question. So in terms of it being documented, we do have contractors that we utilize very frequently, and we have contracts in place with some of them, but the nature of contractors is such that I could get in touch with them and they could say, oh, it's my wedding anniversary, I'm in Taupo. Oh, well, good for you, have a happy marriage. But when these things happen, there shouldn't be a reliability on external parties, and that's just the reality, especially not Coast Guard, which is a bunch of volunteers. So do we have agreements and arrangements with contractors? Yes. Predominantly Dive Hard Contracting, Ocean Adventures Hawke's Bay, and a few others that we utilize for navigation hazard removal, pollution response, and the list goes on.
I think further to that, absolutely, for BAU activities where we can plan and organise those events, yes. For unplanned emergencies, no. That would be on a core basis and on a basis that they were available. And therein lies the need for a business case for a harbour master's vessel.
Yep.
That also doubles as a marine oil spill response vessel for our organisation that also undertakes those activities.
Yeah, I mean, look, reading through it, it was great to have an opportunity to get more detail on the harbour master function. But to me, given what we've been looking at in this committee in recent months, the key concern for me at the moment managing the risk is how are you mitigating that current risk in terms of those contractual arrangements with the commercial operators, and are they being monitored? And it, as you say, it's the BAU is fine. It's when there's an emergency that the problem will arise. So I think that would be my recommendation from my perspective around certainly putting things in place going forward to address the recommendations, but also making sure that there's as much risk mitigation in place currently should something happen before a boat is purchased.
Yeah.
Much as you can.
Through you, Chair, we do have a small vessel that is used for marine oil spill response. It's coming to the end of its life very rapidly. We are maintaining that in order to extend its life, but it is not suitable going forward.
Right? Yes.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Just a couple more points on the review panel final report. Page 6, para 18, observes that this committee manages our HAZMATE incident management process. I'm not aware of that, and just I'm sure we have we have a process. I'm just wondering whether we should understand more about that, or maybe put it on the list to have a look at some stage soon. I don't know what it is. This report is relying on me managing it, and I'm not aware of it.
Okay, so, good.
No, you go. You talk about hazmat.
Okay, so the audit is going to be focusing on the safety management system and how we also address our risks. For hazards and mitigations, the council uses something called HAZMATE. I think that has kind of transitioned into the health and safety department, so that's what it was focusing on. So it was looking at our safety management system, i.e. the harbour master safety management system, or risk analysis, i.e. the harbour masters, and also what's generally used in the council.
So HAZMATE, through you, Chair, is a tool that is reported on by our health and safety functions.
I just don't recall having seen it.
No, I take your point, and I think it's part of the issue around making sure that the wider council and councillors understand what's happening in the harbour master area is making sure that the relevant health and safety controls and assurances are picking up the particular issues within the harbour master area as well. And I don't think we've seen enough about that previously, and this is an opportunity to get a better understanding and oversight from a governance perspective of those issues.
Agreed, thank you. Look, and one further question, just a small one, page 9, risk mitigation factors. First one, A to N, I didn't know what that was.
So it's 8 to navigation. I think there would have been so 8 to navigation is 8 on.
Thank
So
you.
basically, buoys, beacons, lead lights, etc., etc.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. There being no further queries or comments, let's move to review and consider, so we're being asked to review and consider the staff report. Can I have someone to move that? Councillor McIntosh, thank you very much. Second.
Happy to do
Councillor
so.
Harding, thank you, everyone happy with that? All right, thank you very much for coming along today, Adrian. Thanks, Katrina. All right, so we will quickly move to the Treasury Compliance Report. I'm conscious that we've got EY coming in at 10:05, so we'll go through this one.
Oh, okay. Are we going to have a 2-minute break?
Oh, no.
No?
Very quickly, can I just introduce this? We have a wonderful Treasury and Investment Manager here, Tracy, along with Chris. This is a pretty normal report for us, and we've had no material incidents or events that are occurred outside our normal Treasury policy. But I'll hand over to Tracy. Any pertinent points, Tracy, that you want to call out?
Just really want to highlight the fact that obviously any breaches that we have had that have been minor with regards to counterparty have been a result of moving the managed funds from one investment entity across to the other, so that, you know, it was unavoidable basically. We mitigated that as much as possible. And the other thing is obviously that around the managed funds there needs to be a agreement or a consideration, I think, between Council and HBRIC regarding the capital protected value of what they are expected to maintain. Yeah, I don't think there's been a discussion about that, but it might not be for this committee, it might be for another, I'm not sure, but I think there hasn't been a discussion around what that capital protected value is now the assets have been moved.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge difference in the two numbers, is there, which is helpful. Is there a decision for corporate and strategic?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Great, I'll take it to them, thank you. And lastly, the only other thing I just wanted to say is basically we're aware that obviously our monitoring with regards to our debt levels, with the expected increase in debt levels due to the projects, the NIWE projects that are coming up, we're looking at investing some time into creating some better tools that we can do some scenarios on that and actually have better feedback on a short-term basis and right out to the end of the LTP as well, so that we can actually manage that debt level and make some decisions around that and look at scenarios, how best to mitigate the level of that and also the cost of it as well.
Okay. Queries from around the table?
Paragraph 24, year 24, took into account what you just said. Forecast anticipates debt levels at 176 million by 2027. So based on what you know at the moment, is that the peak?
That is the peak that we know at the moment. It's a matter of how we get there and how quickly we end up there. It is a bit of a moving feast at the moment. We know what our commitment is regarding the NIWE project, but it's just all about the timing of that and about making sure that we don't enter and draw down cash too early because of the cost of it.
So, okay, so that needs to be closely aligned with when the work is happening and when we receive money from government.
Exactly, yeah. So we just, because of the fact that those things are still just being discussed and confirmed, we just want to have a tool that basically we can use that allows us to project a few more things and look at the best way of managing it.
And just, can I pause you for one moment? I'm conscious that our EY auditors have joined us. Good morning, gentlemen. We're just finishing off another item earlier on the agenda just ahead of you guys, so please ignore us for a few minutes while we just finish that. Okay.
Good morning, and no problem at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair. I'll try to be brief, not my strong point. Para 11, just noted the recovery funding excluded from Treasury reporting. Now, and I just wanted to just test my understanding of that. On the one hand, if we've got wadges of cash floating around that aren't part of our normal business, then it's prudent to exclude those from the likes of our what's the word, liquidity tests, those kind of things, those kind of measures. So on one level, I get that, that's sensible. If I was being risk averse, I would read that as staff pushing back and saying this is an area that governors don't get to look at, and it just reads as being a little bit exceptional and a point of possible risk. So I just wanted some assurance that in excluding this recovery funding from our reporting, from our standard the standard reporting framework, that we're not missing something in terms of risk. That was my first question.
Great question, Dan. So when I talk recovery, that's basically the silt and debris funding, and so it was creating issues for us in terms of the cash that we were holding on behalf of the Crown was actually really distorting our liquidity position and our cash position, such that it was actually created a risk in itself, that there was a false sense of HBRC being completely flush with a whole lot of cash. It actually wasn't ours, we were just administering it. So no, I can't see any risks in holding that. The one thing I will say about that is the contract with the Crown, the Department of Internal Affairs, finishes on the 31st of December. So we will no longer be holding on behalf of up until probably the mid-February, by the time we do a final payout of all silt and debris contractors, reimburse the Crown for anything left over, make repayments to other councils. So all of that will be gone by sort of February next year in terms of our accounts. So we're nearly at the end of that recovery funding now.
Susie, if I can just add to that, we also have a small amount of money that we received on behalf of the HBRRA administration. So that will continue until June 2025.
So I've got a couple more.
Yeah, follow up.
Para 12 talks about an attached report, the practical application of Treasury policy limits.
Yeah, apologies for that. That was actually in the last June report, and I forgot to take that paragraph out.
Thank you.
I picked that up this morning.
And my final question, just at, where we go, Para 17. I've just looked at the returns we're getting, Jardine versus B and Z, and the immediate, not much difference from a risk point of view. My question is Jardine, does it have a rating, and how does that compare?
Because we actually go through Jardine through to get to the individual banks, we've looked at the rating of the base bank where the funds are actually deposited, being Westpac and ANZ. So we look at their rating.
Okay, thank you.
Kia ora, Tracy, Chris. Just on the recovery funding, and you said RRA funding completes in June next year. Is that correct? Because I've heard
Yes,
there's an
correct, yes.
extension. That's
So right now, the current contract with the DIA has the 30th of June 2025 as that funding given to the RRA must be used by the 30th of June.
And in terms of if RRA want to extend their life, that is they find a different mechanism than the current one with HBRC.
That they can do that via a request to the Crown, but not for more money. It would have to be that there is money still left over, and they would want to then extend the life of the RRA based on there being money still unspent.
I guess the question is, what does that mean for our organisation's role in the RRA if that was to be extended?
We'd continue to have the same role as we currently do now in administering those funds and technically being the employer of those people.
Right, so it may extend, yes, okay.
Right. Is there anything further? So we are being asked to receive and note the Treasury Compliance Report for 1 July to 30 September. Can someone move that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Second, I will. No, second.
Absolutely.
Let's mix it up. Everyone in favour?
Aye.
Aye, good, thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Tracy and Chris. Okay, so thank you. Welcome properly. Thanks for your patience, gentlemen. So we are now moving to item 7, which is the Ernst & Young Audit Close Report on the year ended 30 June 2024.
I'll pass to Chris Romer.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Okay, we've had our auditors in over the start of this month, the last month, and we're almost at the stages of finalising the audit. As part of that audit review each year, our auditors, Ernst & Young, will come along to the Risk and Audit Committee to present some of their findings or their draft findings from the report. So what I will do is I'll introduce David Borry and Matthew Walker from EY and ask them to talk to their report.
Thanks, Chris. And we'll primarily give a brief update based on the executive summary that's in our report on page 3, and then very happy to answer any questions that the committee has. In terms of overall context, from our perspective, it was a good process, so we can confirm that we've had access to all of the information that we needed, and we found council staff approached the work in a really positive way, and we received a good level of support throughout the process. What I might do is I'll just confirm the nature of the audit opinion that we intend to provide, and then I'll pass over to Matt just to give a little bit more context around items of a more general nature. So in terms of the audit opinion that we expect to issue, that is broadly consistent in nature with the 2023 year. So that is a qualified opinion in respect of infrastructure assets and an emphasis of matter in respect of emissions, the emissions performance measure. I just wanted to give three points of context around that opinion as well. The first one being that in the opinion, we're very clear that for any matters that are not impacted by the qualification, we are satisfied that the annual report is materially accurate. In terms of the qualification itself on infrastructure assets, that qualification is of a different nature to the qualification that was in our report last year, albeit it's still on infrastructure assets. And that's because as at the 30 June 24 year end, we are satisfied that infrastructure assets have been appropriately valued. Our qualification, therefore, doesn't relate to the balances in the balance sheet as at 30 June 2024, but instead it relates to the statement of comprehensive revenue and expense and the statement of changes in equity to the extent that an inaccurate valuation as at 30 June 2023 may have washed out through those particular statements in the current year. And the last point of context on that is just to set expectations going forward, provided council follows its ordinary process for the upcoming financial year, we would expect no qualification in respect of that matter going forward. I might pass over to Matt just to give a bit of an update around overarching progress on the audit and one or two other specific matters.
Yeah, so again, focusing on the executive summary, which is page 3, or I believe page 25 of your under separate cover attachment. As the committee will be aware, the infrastructure assets were revalued in 2024, and that was our high area of audit focus. The valuation was performed by PDP, and having reviewed their deliverables, we're satisfied that the valuation is appropriate. We had 15 open items listed as at the date of this report, and the majority of these have now been received. We continue to work through with management the final pieces that have been received over the last week, as well as our review of the annual report. We don't expect any issues in the closeout of these final procedures. However, there may be some adjustments to the disclosures in the accounts as a result of our work. We have no unadjusted differences in the year at the council level. However, there are unadjusted differences on consolidation of Napier Port, which are consistent with the audit that we performed of Hawke's Bay Regional Investment Company. These differences are not considered material to the accounts as a whole, and these will be included in a letter of representation, which will be asked to be signed by the council as part of a meeting next week. Lastly, on our control observations, we note positive progress on prior periods. However, there are 5 items we have brought to management's attention where we think process improvement could be made. The only new item noted this year relates to the retention of receipts on expense claims to align with policy. That's all I really wanted to draw your attention to, but we would open the room to any questions for Dave and I.
Okay, thank you. So around the table, do we have
That's quite
queries?
reassuring that it's only some receipts have gone missing, so very good.
Does anyone have any particular query? This is going to be a quick agenda item, isn't it? Nothing from Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Harding?
No question, but just to observe and thank the EY staff. That my main question was to get my head around the qualification and just being doubly sure that it was essentially what I see a technical qualification isn't saying we can't put our name to the opening balances for our infrastructure, therefore we qualify. It doesn't. It's unfortunate that it casts aspersions on our overall report, but once you dig into it, it gives us a tick actually for where we are now. So I guess I'm just going to have to suck that up. Thank you.
No problem, and if it helps in our report itself, we're as specific as we can be in terms of, other than that matter, we're satisfied everything else is materially accurate, and we are clear that we are satisfied with the balance sheet as at 30 June 2024.
Thank you.
Councillor Hokianga, do you have anything you want to add there?
Okay, move chair. If you need someone to move the paper.
I have one query myself. There's talking about the assessment of the control environment on page 13, I think. And some of the recurring matters. So my read of that is and they're low level, at best medium risk ratings. Am I reading this correctly? Some of these have been raised previously. So my query is, are they being actioned?
Would you like me to answer that, David? So the ones that have been raised previously, for example, things around our community loans, it is an issue with the systems that we have that it is very difficult to reconcile them. We've actually got better this year than we have in the past, but it's not something that we can fix completely without a major piece of work. And given that we've now stopped the sustainable homes process, that way. Other ones around sensitive expenditure and some of the approvals and stuff like that are ongoing issues that we are trying to address, but sometimes human nature and trying to get that finished we haven't been able to fix it completely.
Okay.
But they are all being worked on.
Right. All right. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Look, last night we received by email onto Stella what I think is the provisional final copy of the audit opinion. But that was at very late notice. I just wanted to know, to be brought to attention any changes between the first draft that we had received and I'd so lovingly marked up with lots of interesting morsels. So was there any material change? And if so, can you point to it, please, somebody?
Through it? Are you talking about the financial statements?
No.
So,
What can we be going? The audit opinion.
Oh, that'll be, so the report that you have sent out, the closed report, David.
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there were any substantive changes. Sorry, I didn't realise there were 2 versions that had gone up.
Yeah, we pushed up the draft as early as we could to make sure it was on the agenda, but yeah.
Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, there's no changes.
I read the final one in more detail than the other one. Just my night played out last night.
Between us, we've got it covered. That's good.
Yeah. Hopefully. So is there anything else around the table that we want to clarify, or are we able to move on from this one? You're happy to move? Thank you. Second.
Councillor McIntosh, do you want to have a lash?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Everyone in favour? Good.
Aye.
Thanks. All right, thank you very much, Matthew and David, and thanks also to Chris and Pam. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm wondering, given that we have a bit of time and given the request earlier, if we might have a little pause for a few moments. So if we move.
Can I just, that's a fantastic idea. There is one question that I had. It's a question sort of process related to the year in the accounts, which is probably worth just flushing, and it's because this is the first time we completed a set of accounts subsequent to getting a credit rating. So just my question was simply just to flag, is there anything different in process that we should understand accommodating that? Thank you.
No, there won't be anything different in process. We'll make a statement in the accounts to the effect that we've now got a credit rating, but that doesn't change anything. What it does mean, though, however, is we will get Fitch. So different from the auditors, we will now have an on-site on an annual basis from the credit rating agency, Fitch. And so we haven't been advised when that is, but I'm expecting on an annual basis there will be an on-site. Fitch will look at our financials, rely on our financials, look at our forecasts, get a sense of the economy, environment, all that sort of stuff. So a separate process goes alongside, but Fitch will rely on the numbers that are produced.
And beauty of that is not only does that listing the rating give us at the moment where our ratings are, I'm not expecting that they're going to get any worse, give us cheaper financing, so we get some savings there, but we also have another external set of eyes that gives additional assurance, which is of interest to this committee. Thank you.
Okay. Let's have a break, and I need to move out of public into public excluded, and I don't have the wording in front of me. Let's do that before, but I just need to find the wording that this is the minutes.
So this is for the minutes?
Yeah. It's not on
there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Sorry.
thinking I need
Do you
that.
want me to read out the wording?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, for item 8, the minutes, it's pretty straightforward. It's for the reasons we exclude the public from that meeting. For the legal update, the reason we want to go into public excluded is to prevent the disclosure of information that is legally privileged. And that is because the matters being discussed may potentially be the subject of litigation, and in relation to the public interest, the fact that reviews are underway and being widely shared by the community with the media is considered that public interest has been served.
Okay. I'm happy to
Is
move
that sufficient?
Thank you.
Okay.
Second. Councillor. Everyone happy with that? In favour?
Aye.
Good, thank you. So move into public excluded, and we will have a 10-minute break or so. Does that work for everyone?
Yep.